My name is Joe McGivern. I am the chair. Members present are Councilor Tallman, Councilor Sullivan. Members going to join us a little later is Councilor Bartley, and Councilor Leahy has a work commitment, so he won't be joining us this evening. Other city councilors that are present, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Graney, and at the moment, I believe that's it. This meeting is being both Zoom with access to the public, live broadcast now on channel 15, and we also stream our city council meetings and subcommittees. With all that said, the meeting is called to order. Hear a motion that we will quickly go to item number 5.
Suspend the rules and go to item number 5. Out of order.
A second to suspend the rules to quickly go to item number 5. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
So moved. This is introduced by our president, Councilor McGee. It's been on our agenda for the last 3 meetings. It's to invite the auditor and others to discuss the update of the city council on the rules associated with the ARP Act, that the auditor also provide the council with the updates that they become when they become available. We've been told the last 2 meetings that, and I believe I talked to the auditor earlier, that these are not fully available. There's still some questions. Some of these monies are going to need it to be appropriated into the general budget, so to speak, or because they're going to take over general budget items. Others are going to be done in a different way. And we just had a request from Lisa Zoller, who is our community development director, to give us a quick update from her end.
Great. Thank you, councilors, and thank you for pushing the agenda item up. I really appreciate it. And I do note that Tanya is participating in the meeting. So I promise to keep this quick, and I will do that. So the city has been awarded approximately $29 million through the 2021 Congressional American Rescue Plan Act, known as ARPA. We'll be receiving our funds through the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Grant Program. The grants are going to be federal grants. They will be coming to you eventually to accept those grant funds. Mayor Murphy will be making some press statements on Tuesday afternoon at 3:30. He'll be holding a press event to roll out the program. Mayor Murphy has identified a process, an allocation process for these funds, very similar to the Community Development Block Grant process, including the City Council, subcommittees of the City Council, and the Citizens Advisory Committee in the allocation process. Part of this federal program does require community participation and full transparency. So we'll be providing opportunities for the public to participate and comment on the allocation process. The grants must be used for COVID recovery in several very discrete areas. One of them, as Councilor McGivern described, is revenue replacement for the city. Others include affordable housing development, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, public assistance to households in the area of things like food assistance, education, job retraining, and probably most critical for the city of Holyoke is a fairly robust economic development package with specific outreach to tourism, hospitality, and the travel sector. We've had extensive discussions between the auditor's office, the community development office, the treasurer's office, and the mayor's office about the best way and the quickest way to implement these funds in the city. And I think you all will be pleased with the process that the mayor is going to roll out. We anticipate that the proposals will come to the city council on or around August 3rd for you all to make your recommendations to the mayor, with final mayoral recommendations being made shortly thereafter, and then agreements in place with subrecipients or municipal departments by early September. The funds are going to be provided to the city in 2 tranches. The first one is available for draw right away, and the second one will be available for draw within 1 calendar year of the first draw. The funds need to be allocated or under contract by 2024 and spent in their entireties by 2026. It's a tricky program in that it's rolled out by the Treasury and not a programmatic division like HUD. And so as we work through it, we're getting updates from both the Treasury Department. They're providing FAQs almost every evening. And we're also working with our congressional delegation to get some specific questions answered as we go. So I'm happy to take any questions, but that's where we are in a nutshell. And Tanya, if you have anything you want to add.
Actually, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
I do have some questions. Tanya,
Sure.
Mayor Murphy, Alicia, I don't have a problem with parts of these monies being distributed through the block grant process. Our mayor is the chief financial officer. I recognize that, but the city council has a major say in the budget process for the city annual city budget itself, which we are just about ready to kick off right now. So monies that are going to replace revenue, monies that are going to be used that are normally budget items, it is my firm belief that they need to go through the budget process. And I know everybody's saying no, but I'm challenging that. And if people are not going to give me some answers straight up, we'll go straight to the congressman and go straight to the state and find out why the city council is not going to be voting on these funds. I'm not talking about recommendations. I'm talking about appropriation votes.
I actually have an answer to that.
I'm waiting.
So we received guidance, I believe it was yesterday, that says that this funding is going to be handled as a federal grant. So you are going to be seeing a grant acceptance come through council. We actually put it on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting, and the funds will be processed and expended the same way as grant funding.
Okay, but I didn't answer my question, Tanya. I understand all that, and I'm not against all that. You know, whether it's through Alicia's office or through your office, I understand the grant process. I understand the way it works. That's fine. I'm talking about the monies that are going to be used to replace revenue, to replace specific line items within our budget. And the city council, is my belief, needs to be able to vote on that as an appropriation. Not the entire $29 million perhaps, but part of it should be within our purview, not recommendations, but our actual vote. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it would be my expectation that whatever calculation we get approved in terms of lost revenue, that lost revenue would in fact, I would be looking at that lost revenue as potentially a supplemental budget, as opposed to doing it like community development. I believe that I would be in that position to be able to do that. And I certainly would have no problem. And I've already tried to start anticipating what we might do with additional revenues and supplemental budget. And that would be, to me, that would be just like the budget process, and the council would have full final say. But the rest of the money that is not based on lost revenue, and unless something has changed in the last 48 hours, is, as I understand it, to be handled like community development funding. And I'm looking at Alicia, she's nodding, so that's a good sign. Again, just as I did with this year's community development funds, I will take all the citizen input, I'll take the council input, and try to come up with the package that has the most robust impact on this community. And so I'm in agreement with you on the lost revenue as far as that going through, appropriating that and then having that go through a regular budgetary process. And the other part, as I understand it, will go through as community development funds go through.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. And I'm only one person, obviously, on the city council, but that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And it's not just about the expenditure of the money itself. It's about the revenue side coming in, the cherry sheet, what we're using for monies, and what the outside auditor and eventually Department of Local Services look at in terms of deficits. There's a lot of ways to look at this, and it's not just spending the money. I'm grateful the federal government is doing this for all municipalities, but I think it's important, and you answered my question. I appreciate it. Is there any other discussion? Any other counselors? Alicia, you all set? Chair would suggest we keep this on the table for a future meeting.
Motion to table item number 5.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to table item number 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night. Have a great
Item
holiday
number
weekend.
1.
Good night.
Motion to take item number 1 off the table.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
This is introduced on behalf of the mayor by myself, that the city council appropriates $7,471.64 for the purpose of the roofing projects for the schools through an MSBA grant itself. Whitney Anderson is not with us. There's a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of a mix-up here. So I would just ask at the moment, unless he joins us a little bit, that we keep this on the table. We're in pretty good time frame as far as this goes.
Mr.
He's
Chairman?
actually way ahead of everything, but he's in good shape. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I got that as item number 3 on my sheet.
You know, I didn't think it was item number
So
1.
do I, Joe. I got it as number 3 too, Joe.
Jeff, I printed the agenda. I don't know what I printed.
I printed it from the invite, the finance committee, when he invited everybody. Item 1 is the CPA project for Jackson Street.
That's the agenda I made.
I got mine off the city website, Joe.
Okay, I'm going to the city website. Let's go to the city website agenda. I apologize. I printed the draft agenda that Jeff had put together for me, and I didn't print my own agenda that I finalized. Item number 1 is a CPA. Item number 1 is the CPA project recommendation for Jackson Street first-time homeowner buyer affordable housing project. The motion to take that off the table.
So
All
moved.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Besides our liaison, Councilor Mike Sullivan, we have Amy Lando here as the CPA administrator with us this evening. And I believe that's it. And I would ask Amy or Mike just to walk us through this request. I believe we've already agreed with the appropriation. This is an amendment, or Mike, could you walk us through it, or Amy?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Amy. And just there's no change in the dollar amount or the scope of the project. It's only in the terms, the terms and conditions. One of the Holyoke Housing Authority, because of procurement laws, would make it too costly within their budget. And Habitat for Humanity has agreed to take on the whole thing. With them doing it, it's going to take a little bit longer to accomplish. So having said that's the background on it, I'll let Amy give you the details of the changes and what we'd like to do here.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Councilor
Mike is
Sullivan.
exactly, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
Mike is exactly right. It's the same project, it's the same amount of money, but because you all voted to recommend this based on certain terms, there is a change to it because of the fact that Habitat for Humanity, which is based on sweat equity, they'll be doing, they are volunteers. They'll be building both homes instead of the Holyoke Housing Authority building one. So for that reason, instead of 12 months, a 12-month period, they need a 24-month period to complete the project. And also, so Habitat for Humanity will build both homes. And this wasn't included in the original terms, but just in the interest of full transparency, I added here that the committee decided to put in for a 15-year affordable housing restriction rather than in perpetuity. That was something discussed at length with the Holyoke Housing Authority, because it allows some return on investment to the homeowner. But that wasn't a particular term that, on the original thing that you voted for, but I'm just mentioning it here.
Thank you.
And just for housekeeping, it would also change the approval of the term that Habitat for Humanity will build both homes.
Got it.
Right. And also one other thing I forgot to mention, which is under funding conditions, is that now instead of having to come back to you if a recipient of this grant needs an extension, we build that into the terms that you vote on. So if you look under funding conditions, it says the grant agreement, this is the third bullet point, the grant agreement will include language for the option of a 6-month extension if requested by the Holyoke Housing Authority and approved by the committee without the need for further review by City Council.
Quick question, Amy. So the Housing Authority is not building it, but they're still the petitioner?
Well, they're still the owner of the properties, is my understanding. But Habitat for Humanity was originally going to build one home and they were going to build the other, but now Habitat for Humanity will build both.
Okay. But the owners will be the Housing Authority?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very familiar with Habitat and Humanity. They built several homes in the area. Just a quick question for Amy or Mike. What was the term, the amount that they would borrow? Was it 120,000 or something?
Yes.
Correct.
That was the total? Okay.
That's
Yeah, I
the
did
total,
remember getting something from the Housing Authority in their minutes saying that something about they couldn't procure or get the funding for the homes. So, and what's going to happen is Habitat's going to build both of them?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it's the same end result. 2 first-time home buyer homes will be built, but it'll just take longer, and Habitat for Humanity will build them both.
Okay, and is there a time frame that they have to start or to finish the build?
Well, the whole period should be 24 months to complete the project, with the option, if the committee agrees, to 6 months additional. So the part of this process that tends to take the longest is the drafting of the contracts. So what we've done is basically, at the time that the contracts are signed by all parties, that's when the clock starts ticking.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Grady.
Yeah, once again, what was the rationale for the Holyoke Housing not participating? Was it lack of funding?
No. You want me to handle this, Joe?
Councilor Sullivan, if you could.
Yeah. Like many other city projects, when they do it, it has to be done under prevailing wage, which just about doubles the cost of the project. So it would not, their share, they could not do it under their existing budget. But Habitat for Humanity stepped in.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Councilor Tallman, you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I think a motion in order to adopt the
Make a
changes.
motion to adopt the changes from the CPA for the Jackson Street project.
Second.
Motion made and second to adopt the changes for the Jackson Street project. Refer this recommendation to the full city council next Tuesday. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Amy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Amy.
So this
Motion to
then
take
goes
item
to
number
city
2 off the
council. Is that Sorry.
Tuesday it's already on the agenda for this coming Tuesday.
okay?
Just waiting
Great,
for our
thank you very-
recommendation.
Thank you very much. I'll be taking
Thanks,
off
Amy.
now. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to take item number 2 off the table.
Motion made and seconded to take item number 2 off the table. Introduced by myself on behalf of the mayor. It's a transfer of total $50,000, $16,000 from salary study, $7,000 from reference library assistant, $27,000 from the assistant director. It's going into 2 line items: $25,000 police fire identification, and for workman's comp, $25,000 each. Off the table, all those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
So moved. We have actually with us our auditor tonight for a couple reasons to walk us through, and I think she'll be able to answer any questions, and then I'll explain once we hear from Tanya what we're doing here.
So what we're doing here is actually for the personnel department, and because of the increase in both police and fire indemnification, which are medical bills and prescription, and as well as workman's comp, they are requesting additional funding to be able to pay bills throughout the rest of the year. I know that they had said that they had a few big expenses with employees getting shoulder surgeries and things like that. And we pay out about $7,000 to $8,000 a month right now in workman's comp. And so that's increased from, previous years and what they had budgeted these lines for.
You're muted, Joe.
Sorry, I'm doing different work here. Is there any discussion, any questions for our auditor?
Bill?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry. Is there, Counselor Tomlin?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at the transfers that have come from maybe the acting mayor or Tanya could just explain why there was money left in those line items at almost the end of the year.
You mean in the library personnel items?
Yeah, the salary study, library, and the
Yep.
assistant director.
So the salary study actually was supposed to be for the new ordinance that we passed, except for it's not starting until next fiscal year.
Okay.
And the other two were open positions. I know that Maria from the library had come in front of the council, stating about how she had these open positions and she was having a hard time filling them. So that is money left over from those particular line items where she had not been able to fill those positions. And she was kind enough to help us out.
Okay. Can you explain again the salary study, the money? Because is that money that was supposed to be used for the rest of this year, or?
The salary study was for, I don't know if you recall, the library had its own salary schedule.
Right.
And they were looking to increase that for, I don't know, as long as I've been here. And they were integrated into the new salary ordinance we just passed. But that doesn't become into effect until July 1st of 2021. So that money will not be spent.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yep. Thanks. Through the chair, Tanya, police and fire indemnification, is that a new line item?
Nope, that's not new at all.
And how much was in the original budget?
I'd have to look it up for you. Give me 1 second. 191. It is $135,000.
So the price is increased to 160,000?
Yep, there's $383 in that account right now.
Okay. Who do we get this indemnification from? An insurance company, I take it?
No, it's actually what it is it's prescriptions and doctor's appointments for police and fire. They're like Express Scripts, surgical supplies, Inpatient Medical Association, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. That's what we're paying. Things like that. That's what we're paying out of here.
All right. And the workers' comp part, now, what exactly is that playing? Because every other week we're putting aside money from the regular salary item to injured on duty. Is this something they're getting in addition to the injured on duty?
Yes. Workman's comp is separate from the injured on duty. And it actually it's processed through our payroll, workman's comp, and injured on duty as well, but.
So they're getting their full salary while injured on duty plus a workman's comp?
They're different people.
I don't understand different people.
Some people are on workman's comp and some people are out on injured on duty. Police and fire have injured on duty and the rest of the departments have workman's comp. It's different for the police and the fire department.
Okay, so this is for other municipal employees outside of the police and fire department.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Greenie. Counselor Greenie. Not sure if we lost
Mr.
him or
Chairman?
can you hear me?
He's back.
Counselor
He's back,
Greenie.
Jeff. No, he's done.
Okay, we'll hang on for a minute for Counselor Greenie and see if he can get back in. Is there any other discussion? I have a quick question, Tanya. On the workman's comp, is the need for workman's comp up higher this year, as historically what it's been running the last 4 or 5 years?
Yes. Usually there's like 2 to 3 people on the payroll, maybe, sometimes only 1. But right now, like all year long, we've had like 6 to 7 individuals, which comes out to like $6,000 or $7,000 a pay period. It's a lot.
Can we have the, I don't think we need names, but the general listings of the positions and what departments this is happening in?
If I know where they work, yes. Or did you want me to send it?
Get that to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Jeff, would Counselor Greenie be trying to get back in, or we're not sure?
When he gets back in, I see a phone number pop up, and right now it's not there.
Okay. All right. Well, is there any further discussion on this item? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the transfer.
Second,
Motion made and second to approve the transfer and send that recommendation to the full city council on Tuesday.
Oh,
If there's
there
no
he
further
is.
discussion, all those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? So moved.
I think he's back, Joe.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Counselor
Chairman.
Greenie, we were just waiting for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I lost somehow the phone hung up on me. I don't know. Anyways, I just had a quick question. Why the different injured workman's comp and injured on duty? Why 2 different areas? What's the rationale for that? I don't understand that. Why not one?
It's actually in their contracts.
So it's a contractual thing?
Correct.
The injured on duty is contractual with police and firemen, firefighters.
Once again, why?
They negotiated it, the mayor gave it to them, and we approved it.
Well, okay.
Sorry,
It
but
seems to
that's,
me it seems to me that would be a negotiating item for the future. Anyways, thank you.
Mayor Murphy, we cannot tell you what to do.
Yeah.
All right, it's a good question, but that's what it is. Any other discussion? We already voted. We're gonna recommend this to be adopted at the moment and move on to item number 3.
Motion to take item number 3 off the table for discussion.
Motion made and second to take item number 3 off the table for discussion. This is introduced under my name, but on behalf of the mayor, on behalf of the Holyoke Public Schools, and it's the request to put into the MSBA for a grant for a total of $7,471,654 for the purpose of paying for the cost of roof replacement at several of our school facilities. I believe it's all school buildings. Most of us know the MSB procedure, but the MSB procedure is we have to qualify first by putting in the application. This comes under the Chapter 44, and this particular grant is, I believe, and I'll let Whitney take over in a second, eligible for 80% reimbursement. The idea tonight is Whitney Anderson is with us, is to make a decision, answer some questions, and see if we can get in the hopper for the next funding, this go around of funding with the MSBA. So with that in mind, the chair would ask that we allow Whitney Anderson to update us on the request and to answer our questions. Whitney, welcome. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for joining us. And if you could just walk us through this.
Absolutely. This opportunity that we have is in what we call a design feasibility stage, where the parameters of the project are being established through appointed, because it's an accelerated repair project. And part of that program that involves, just for your edification, 3 different components. There are opportunities for us to take advantage of in this program. One are windows and doors. We completed 3 projects in 2019 very successfully at Morgan School and Sullivan School and Kelly School for windows and doors. And then we also did Kelly boilers the previous year in the summer of 2018. Very successful projects, right in and around 80% reimbursement, 20% cost to the city. That's the advantage of these particular programs. So there are windows and doors, there are boilers, and there are also roofs that qualify for these particular opportunities. Based on the fact that the MSBA has certain number of years that we need to accumulate before these types of various components in the buildings suffer beyond their normal life expectancies, roofs fall into the category of 30 years. So the city, through funding appropriation in 1989 and 1990, put additions onto 4 buildings in our district: Morgan School, Sullivan School, Ian White School, and Donahue Schools. And those are the ones that were a big improvement to the square footage that the city had in its portfolio for the children. And now those roofs for those additions have all fallen under that opportunity for 30-year replacement. The pivotal thing here is that the roofs themselves, when they were originally created and installed, only had a 15-year warranty. So we've been blessed to have these things, with some repairs, still hang in there to this very day. So the idea that what we're doing here now for 3 of these 4 schools, because one of them actually had roofing improvements made a short time afterwards and do not qualify. That's Morgan School for their addition. So the proposed projects are for Sullivan School, Ian White School, and Donahue Schools. And this would be for the areas specifically of those additions and the components of the addition. There are 2 different components. One is a membrane roof, we call it. So it's like a rubber, and it's uniform throughout the whole surface of the roof area. And then the area also in all 3 of these schools also has a metal roof that you can see that's quite visible as you approach these schools. And those would also be refurbished, not from the standpoint of removing and replacing the metal, but just to restore and refinish the metal with a new finish. And then the roofing itself, traditionally, as it is eliminated from use, that's removed. The insulation below that, which has suffered, is removed as well. And then we get down to the original structure of the roof, which is a metal deck, which is the same for all 3 schools, which is great for us. We've done the investigatory hygienist report. There is no hazardous materials here, so I don't think any asbestos will be found. They've tested hundreds of different locations in the 3 structures to make sure of that. And now what happens is they re-insulate on top of the existing metal deck to today's standards, which is twice as much as what was installed originally, and then put a brand new membrane on top of that. I'm attempting to have the architects design for a 25-year longevity, which would really put us well ahead into the future as far as these components are concerned. So the opportunity that we have now would take place should the council wish to support that. in the summer of 2022. Not this particular summer, because the paperwork and all the design and the bidding and so forth takes quite a bit of effort. And also there's a give and take back and forth between the MSBA just to make sure that we're following the appropriate protocol. So what happens now is, the reason it's before you now is because in order to comply with those various deadlines, we actually need to act now in order to make sure that we can go out to bid either very late this year or very early the beginning of next year to, number one, obtain the best possible bidding opportunity before the contractors and the people, the roofers that do this type of work, get very busy. So if we went out in April or May of next year in order to try to do summer work, we'd risk a higher price. But when we get these folks, when they're hungry at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, then it's a much more favorable bidding environment, and the city would obtain most likely better contracts. So that's what we have as an opportunity now for your discussion, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions or to talk in any regard. I'm very familiar with all aspects of this project.
Whitney, on the design for 25 years, is there a reason why 25 years if the MSBA is using 30 years? Guessing that they'll, in 25 years, still be using 30 years.
Well, it's interesting, Counselor. What happens is the MSBA is not, they're not contractors themselves. To have opportunity here for some of the various thresholds of engagement. The boilers, for instance, if we wish to replace a boiler, they actually have to be 35 years old. Windows and doors, 30 years. Roofs, 30 years. So it's quite uncommon, more common than not, for a new roof system. An inexpensive roof system would be approximately 15-year warranty. A moderately priced roof system would be could be up to 20 years. One that would offer the best quality for the traditional materials that we find, which are actually some of the preferable materials that we already have in place at 11 of our schools, are actually made in Canton, Mass. So, and that's what we would call a premium roof product. And these carry warranties that go up to 25 years. It's very uncommon to get warranties above there, and the price generally goes beyond what the reasonable market would bear. So it doesn't make sense to try to obtain any greater warranty than 25 years at this point for the products that we're looking at that are traditional for this particular type of job. I hope that answers your question.
It does, Whitney, and also just, and I'll turn it over. I want to hear from the auditor in a second too, but on the design and design phase, feasibility phase, you have an estimate on what you think the cost of these roofs are actually going to be?
Yes, the estimate that we've prepared now. So we've come about it two different ways. The MSBA, as a resource for the 400 and some odd districts throughout the Commonwealth, has been in this business, as you and I know. We started prior to the creation of the MSBA, when it was actually known as the SBA. So the State Building Authority. Now it's the Massachusetts State Building Authority. So it has evolved, and that's when we picked up on the Holyoke High School project. But they have a tremendous resource of historic costs that are online, available to anyone that can go through there. And what they actually do is they look at the specific project we're talking about here, as we know, are the accelerated repair projects. So they have an entire database from 2013 all the way to 2019. So 19 is the most current ones that we have available. They have approximately 8 different projects that they funded that particular year that are very similar to ours. What I did was I took the size of the roof, I took the cost of the actual bid contract that was issued for that particular job, and then I divided it by the number of square feet that was utilized for there. I obtained a square foot cost and then could average all those 8 different projects to obtain an approximate cost of, for particular roofs that we have, they had 2 different divisions. They had roofs that were under 100,000 square feet, and they had roofs that were over 100,000 square feet. So what I did was I looked at the ones that we have, and our roofs are under 100,000 square feet. So the multiplier that I used there, I multiplied by the actual total number of square feet that we have at these various projects to obtain a cost, and then escalated that by an inflation rate, and then compounded it to get to a real value of what you see before you today, the $7.4 million. Now, that was my internal estimate to just initially get an idea of what the scope of the project would be. Now that we have the OPM came on board, and he has gone and provided this particular estimate for your review, that now traces back his opinion and their team's opinion, because they have numerous people working on this estimate, which you see before you now. And their costs have come up very similar to what the MSBA has experienced in regards to the actual projects which they have funded in 2019. So that's the similarity between those two came together, and that's the specific estimate, the rendering that the OPM has put together for this particular three different roofing projects combined, which is the total ask before you tonight. So that's where that number came from.
In the cost per square foot, what did you use?
Approximately $70 per square foot.
Thank you. Before we ask Tanya and probably Whitney about the formula of reimbursement from the MSBA, are there any more questions or discussion about the proposal, the project itself?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Whitney.
Councilor Grady?
Yeah, as you know, Mr. Anderson, the projected cost of building materials around the country at this point is skyrocketing. So the figures that you are using today on this project quite possibly could be very inflated in the next year or two before the bids are put out So I think you're going to probably have to build in a little more money for these projects at some point in time, because the building materials are skyrocketing across the country. Also, the inflation rates are increasing, and interest rates are increasing as well. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct. And I'd just like to address that specific concern, Councilor Grady. And what happens now is that as a safeguard in regards to this number that is proposed to you, there are 2 contingencies that are put into this. One, for any unforeseen expenses that may come about through particular nuances of the roof, which are yet to be exposed, of which I think our exposures are very, very minimal. The roofs are very straightforward. It's nowhere near as complicated as a project as the window and the door project, with hundreds and hundreds of different measurements, specific measurements. These are more generic in nature, but I think your point is well taken. And so consequently, that contingency, which is currently built into this budget, there's one for the project, and there's also one for the owner. The owner has a small, that would be us. The owner has a small contingency as well, just safeguard in regards to these fluctuations and variances. There is no question that the amount of inflation that's occurring now is astronomical. The pricing shortage, the shortages of materials that are currently available through a wide spectrum of things is catching everybody by surprise, to the point where some of these products are limited. So what we're hoping to do is to allow this cycle to get back going again. I've talked to roofing companies in this area, which currently serve our district facilities, and they have ordered, as of 2 weeks ago, they had ordered particular membrane, which is what we call the roofing product, and they were expecting delivery in July. So from the middle of May till July, those are the lead times they're experiencing. Now, the products are still available, but you're absolutely correct. They are escalating in cost. So what we're hoping is that the market will come back to, and some of this has to do with Texas, actually, because a lot of the PVC plants down there had suffered greatly from that frozen period that they had. So it's hard to imagine, but it wasn't just pandemic related. So you're absolutely on target. I think that the contingencies that we built in there should allow us, because the majority of the expense is actually the labor involved, and some of the soft costs are those costs that are take to put the whole project together from the designer and the architect. Those are not subject to escalation. So I do think we'll be okay. Sorry to be so long-winded about it.
That's okay. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you.
Counselor Tomlin?
Thank you, through the chair. Whitney, be a little bit shorter with me if you want on this one. I'm looking at the funding, the numbers you gave, for each school, and I understand the contingency, but the rate for the 20% for the total, the design and management costs, is that pretty much standard?
It is. In fact, what happens with these accelerated projects is that the actual vendors themselves, the OPM, the owner's project manager, and the designer, the architect, they are supplied to us. We do not even get to choose those individuals due to the fact that the MSBA has pre-vetted them, and they have, in order to expedite this projects so they can facilitate a quick turnaround for these things. These folks, the designer we have just had very successful experience with, and it was for the 3 window and door projects and the boiler project, and now they have been assigned to us and for these roofing projects. So it's great. So we've already gotten off to a fast track to try to get the investigative work done now, and to make sure that everything is in keeping with the best interests of the city of Holyoke. I safeguard that using the experience I have, as well as the owner's project manager, who is very capable and been with the company that he's been with for over 13 years now, which is great. So he'll be with us throughout the entire course of the project. And so right now, the actual fees that are attributable to the owner's project man, to the OPM, and are generally capped off at 20%. That's correct. So okay. That's the way it goes.
All right, thank you. Another quick question. The timing on this, and I like what you said about earlier about the time of the year when you put out for bid, end of the year, early year, when there's not a lot of business and they want to set their plans up for the next year.
Exactly.
If you get this going and you get the bids in, you said next summer, possibly of
2022.
Right. And how long would it take to complete the projects for the 3 schools?
We're going to do them concurrently. Our plan is to bid them out individually as individual projects. And if we get, it will take from the end of school until the beginning of school. And with some latitude, we would anticipate that what we call substantial completion, where you're just down to a punch list, would be somewhere around the second week of August. So that would still give us a little bit of latitude there. In other words, all the heavy lifting is done by then. Maybe some small application of trim and things like that, but all the membranes in place, all the roofs are protected, all the buildings are watertight, and it would be what they call in the trade a summer slammer. And so we experienced this at Dean School in 2013 with a science lab initiative. And then all of a sudden the city, and just as a little background, the city had applied for and received a grant appropriation through the science lab initiative at the MSBA for 80% reimbursement. We had initially applied for $2.6 million. We obtained over $7 million because the other communities had not taken advantage of the program. They asked us, would you like that? And we said, absolutely. An extra $5 million would be nice, or $4.5 million. And so what we did at that time was to not only have the science labs, but we integrated sprinklers throughout the whole building. We did a lighting upgrade. We put new ceilings throughout the whole building. It was pandemonium, I can tell you. Unbelievable. So we still had the same time schedule to go through, but we made it happen during that time. And that was the one primary objective, that the OPM and the designer worked together to make sure that the school could open when it was supposed to at the end of the summer. So this will be the same opportunity. And I think because of the fact we don't know if we'll end up with one roofer or a multiple of roofers, and they all gear up and pool from union labor pools. So there's great opportunity here now to get started very quickly. The rest of the district, there's plenty of room for summer school in the other buildings that remain, and we'll focus all of our attention on a successful start and finish of this project during the summer of 2020.
And you stated the time after they put these in, because they're more or less restoring the roofs. It's not like a brand new, we're starting from scratch. So
that's
the
right. Yeah.
right? The time frame that they would be guaranteed for?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because what happens is and you're absolutely correct. It's not as though we're waiting for the steel that the decking to be dropped off and installed. It's already there. We did over 50 core samples on the roofs currently about a month ago, and saved quite a bit of money because we had our craftsmen actually do that and the roofing repairs. So what happened was we drilled through specific areas using a 4-inch diameter drill bit. We opened up these areas for inspection for the hygienist to determine the consistency of the materials, make sure there's no hazardous elements there, and also for the structural component. At the same time, the mechanical engineer came up and looked at the rooftop units, the heating elements, HVAC units that are sitting there, took specific drawings and diagrams on those things to make sure that the new membrane would be adaptable to those particular elements. And we noted all the other mechanical conditions where there were penetrations for plumbing or any of the types of things, which all be laid out in the blueprints. So this project itself is contingent upon the availability of materials. And we're not going to start a single thing until we know all the materials are available. That's the one hinge pin there, but that's why we're planning ahead of time. So what happens is as soon as you go out to bid and you receive the successful low bidder and you vet out with the architect and the design and the OPM to make sure that they're qualified and they have a stellar history, then we entertain a contract through the procurement department and then allow them to do their necessary ordering of materials that they do through what we call, submittals of particular materials that we have requested that they order for these particular jobs. So we've guided them very clearly in regard into the direction that we'd like to see and the quality of the materials. And then when they confirm that yes, those materials are available, then that's the one unknown in the whole project. But it's a very straightforward project, unlike starting from scratch with construction.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the work you do for the school system. Appreciate it.
I'm delighted. Thank you.
All set.
As far as the project goes, are there any further questions? I'd like to ask and talk a little bit about the funding. Tanya, I think you're still with us. And Whitney, accelerated projects with the MSBA, are they still guaranteed at the 80% reimbursement?
Yes, they are.
And Tanya, do you agree with that, right?
I do agree with that.
We have some options with the architectural design feasibility study. That could be a short-term cost, until we have to actually float the bond. But what will this do in terms of our bonding capacity? And will this have an impact on the bond for the middle school project?
I actually became involved in this at the very end, so I have not reached out to bond counsel at all, but that is something that I could do for you if you like, unless Whitney or Mayor Murphy has done that already.
I could answer specifically in regards to this particular ask. The way in which that we follow through the protocol that the MSBA requires for these and for all projects. In other words, the large school replacements, they're called core projects. The accelerator projects, as I described to you, those are windows, doors, boilers, and roofs. Both of those types of projects are funded by the city in their entirety. Now, that does not mean that the city is responsible for the $7.4 million. The city is responsible for 20% of the $7.4 million, which is approximately $1.5 million. So our complete ask for this particular effort for these three schools to replace these sections of the roofs is, the bottom line is the net cost to the city is $1.5 million.
And Tanya, that would be over a 20-year period?
Tanya, did you catch that?
I believe that you answered that question already. Did you say 30 years?
No, 20.
No, the bonding is what I'm talking about.
The bonding is for the life of the project, which is, I believe, what Whitney said. You said 20 years?
The warranty that we would be looking for is a 25-year warranty.
Well, I think the bonding would be for the best rate we can get for X amount of years.
Yes.
Yeah, we usually get different estimates to see what's the most beneficial
Okay, and that's controlled by
before we actually bond. Yep.
Okay, is there any further questions? Counselor Sullivan.
Yep, to Whitney through the chair here. Whitney, I just want to be, I heard you say, 1.5 million, roughly 20% of the cost. I just want to make sure that we're doing our math by the MSBA's. We've got that one magic line in there again that we've seen before with the school costs of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA. Now, I take it there's no square foot caveat. I think the number you had mentioned before was $70 a square foot.
Yes.
They don't have like an allowable cost of $50 a square foot, and we're going to get banged somewhere else down the line.
That's a real good point, because what happens here is these projects are site specific for the accelerated repair projects. If you have windows and doors, for instance, as we had previously with the last 3 projects that we went through, again, what we did was to make an approximation of the cost of those 3 projects, just the history of what it was, and the boiler job. So we had a boiler job, remove and replace the boiler at Kelly School, remove and replace the windows and doors, exterior doors at 3 other schools. That was approximated at $13.8 million. Now, what happens there is, as the architect goes through what stage we're going through now, what we call design feasibility, they establish a budget. The state takes that's in the form of a formal submittal. So that gets submitted, that budget gets submitted in their template to the MSBA. They review that budget and then make authorization based on their review of that budget. So the costs themselves, because we've been invited to participate in the initial phase of the program, is site specific to our building. So in other words, they don't second guess the designer that they put forward and say, well, that's too much money. It's based on what they believe, what the designer believes to be a good faith estimate. And then the designer themselves puts that project out for a formal estimation through a state certified estimating firm. So then everything comes back, is submitted to the MSBA in the form of a certified estimate. The MSBA takes that and they don't gerrymander it from there. They know that this is what good faith has been, and the actual costs that we incur now, because the state will then say, well, please proceed. And then, so what happens then is we take the specifics from the design and the narrative that combine the specifications with that physical blueprint and put it out to bid. So what cost we end up getting from there is dependent upon the free market. So there's these opportunities where the cost will then distill itself to an offering from a contractor, from a construction firm, and then, as you're aware, we'll look at what we have available there, and then the state will reimburse according to what that actual cost is. If it's less than what's been estimated, they will give us less. If it's more, then they will take that into consideration and offer us an equivalent amount that goes up. But your point is very good, and the specific of what you asked is it dialed into a specific reimbursable rate per square foot? No, it is not. It is job specific, and that's the difference between the school buildings and the major replacements of school buildings, which is tied in at $333 a square foot, and the projects you see before you tonight. There's much more of a variable give and take with these projects than there is with the specifics of the school replacement projects.
So having said all that, in the design for our new schools, we should get them without a roof, and then we can get even. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Thinking.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, Tanya, I think if you could just, maybe you and Katie run this by Cinder before Tuesday. And just so if there's some more questions from the full city council, we'll have some answers for them on the, is there any impact on the potential to bond for the middle school project and our capacity, does this fit in our capacity, which I think we know that answer because we just were told about, you know, what's coming to fruition for the next couple of years. But just if we could just get that from Cinder, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Whitney, thank you. Is there any, Chair, entertain a motion?
Motion, we want to keep it, have it complied with, Joe?
Actually, we have to adopt it and
Adopt and
send it forward. Yep.
okay, we adopt it and send it to the full council after hearing from the, our auditor and,
Well, yeah, we'll get an answer from the bond
And that-
council for
right.
Tuesday. I think all the other questions and anticipated questions have been answered by Tanya and Whitney this evening, I hope. So the motion is that we recommend it be adopted and the project be submitted, ask the city council to give approval to submit the project to the MSBA. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Counselor. My pleasure, and I appreciate everything you do.
have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
All right, Wendy.
We're moving on to item number 4.
Motion to take item number 4 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that an order introduced by Councilor Mayor Murphy that the Finance Committee consider a potential proposal from Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid to include Holyoke on the public television series Great Places to Live, Work, and Visit. Consideration needs to be given to the potential making benefits in the terms of economic development, tourism, against the potential cost of subsidizing the actual production. The motion to take off the table, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And to Jason Frank, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Jason, thank you for your patience. I apologize, but we have so many items on an agenda, and some people go first, and some people, like Mayor Murphy, go in the middle.
I understand.
We appreciate your patience, and I want to ask Mayor Murphy to introduce this and then to introduce you so we can hear any presentation you wish to make or be able to answer any questions we have.
Okay.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I was excited. Jason and I have had a few email conversations, and we've had a few telephone conversations talking about the success of the program and the potential benefit in terms of marketing Holyoke on a regional and national scale. And we talked a little bit about the production costs. He actually sent me a few demonstrations of the programs, which I thought were very well run. I thought if we did this, I mean, Jason will tell you, but they would come to Holyoke and do some historical things and tourism things and economic development aspects. And I think it could be a plus for Holyoke. There is, and Jason, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we talked about a 10% cost of production that the city would agree to pick up. They would obviously let us know what that is beforehand. But to me, it was definitely something I wanted to bring before the council because it is an opportunity potentially to really promote Holyoke, both as a place for people to live in terms of our many advantages in terms of energy, water, and others, a place to work, and also a place to visit. So, and we are working on tourism, so obviously this could potentially help us on that as well. So with that, I would love to let Jason explain what the program is, and then I think the council could ask their questions.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Jason, one second. Jeff, can we get Jason? And Jason, are you going to be on video or just telephone?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just dialed in.
No problem. We can hear you fine. I just want to make sure you're
Okay.
comfortable.
I am. Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to the members on the phone. And I did have an excellent phone call with Mayor Murphy in regards to this Discovering America series. If you're not familiar with the Viewpoint Project, it is an educational documentary series. It airs nationwide on public television, and it is hosted by Dennis Quaid. So as I'm sure everybody's aware, there's a lot of people looking to relocate. People are leaving states like California and New York, cities like Chicago, and even in some cases Boston. So we are getting requests from the public television stations to provide educational and informative content to the viewers. The public television audience is a very exclusive and affluent audience, but we have everything from young families, young professionals, to the senior communities, baby boomers, empty nesters, thought leaders, innovators, executives watching public television. So the main objective for the project is to provide educational content first and foremost for public television. But there is a three-pronged approach to the project. And I did get a great idea of what's going on in the city. And believe it would be in line with our educational objectives and would really resonate well with our audience from, as the mayor said, an economic development and a tourism perspective for the city. I do want to make sure it would be a good fit there as well, and certainly to educate and hopefully attract future residents. So as far as the public television documentary series, the short form documentaries are about 3 to 5 minutes. And again, it's above all else about education. It's going to inform the viewer on everything that's happening within the city. And it's also going to be distributed nationally, as I mentioned. So the 3 to 5 short form documentary will bridge the gap between peak and primetime programming on public television stations nationwide. So between 25, 55-minute segments, obviously it's a non-commercial network, and this public television stations do need to fill out time with educational content. And on average, these segments are going to air 45 to 60 times per quarter. So they will reach roughly 60 million households and businesses will be able to see them. This is the segment that is hosted by Dennis Quaid. So again, it's public television. It must remain educational and informative. It's not going to be like an infomercial. There won't be any flashing phone numbers or websites or logos in this particular piece. But with that being said, you'll also have a tremendous amount of creative input into the storyline. Anybody who's going to appear on camera, their name would appear on camera, their position, if it's a member of somebody within the community or a business, obviously they would be represented there as well. So essentially it's going to be a documentary style short form segment, and it's, if selected, we're obviously going to be able to not only give you creative freedom to educate the viewers about the specific. Hello?
Yep.
You're good, Jason.
Yeah. So you have the ability not only to educate on everything you want to talk about and what's going on in the city, but as I said, anybody you want to kind of educate from an industry perspective, from a tourism perspective, we'd have the ability to do that on the public television segment. There's also going to be 2 additional segments that we produce as a thank you to the featured guests for providing educational content for the public television series. One would be an educational spot or commercial. These are 1-minute segments. It's almost like a 60-second documentary. It's going to air nationally once in all 50 states. And we can choose a business network like Fox or CNN or Bloomberg, but also 400 times regionally in the top 100 cities based on population across the country. So we reach about another 84 million homes there. And these are all peak and prime time spots. Nothing airs in infomercial hours, everything from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And we would do major networks like CNBC, Fox Business, the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, the Learning Channel, CNN. We can do the Outdoor Channel if you'd like. And you would get a schedule, so you'll know when these are going to air prior to the actual airings. And then you would also receive the airing affidavits directly from the major networks after the segments air. There's also a corporate documentary, if you will. It's going to be a segment where we'll take a very in-depth look at the community, at the city, everything that's happening. And this is going to be part of a targeted email campaign. If you're not familiar with the term narrowcasting, it is the opposite of broadcasting. So we definitely reach a very broad audience on public television and with the primetime news breaks on the cable networks. With this part of the project, we want to have a behind-the-scenes look of the city, probably a third-party perspective, somebody maybe in business or, as I mentioned, the residents lending some credibility. Typically, those would make for the best segments. But we also want to email that to 1 million viewers who actually request additional information as it relates to great places to live, work, and visit. And this is generated from a database of over 80 million people that opt in. So there's no spam there. These are people actually requesting for more information. They would get an email. They'll be able to click on a link. They'll be directed to a landing page where they'll have a private screening of the documentary. And then we'd like to have a call to action in place. So after they're watching the segment, we would be able to direct them to your website where they can request more information, set up a consultation. And this would be to a very targeted, niche-specific, laser-focused audience. So if you wanted to attract a specific industry or vertical of an industry to the community, we would get this in front of 1 million viewers who will really identify with the story, and then be able to direct them so they can kind of continue the educational journey and move the needle. So we can maybe have a couple of separate landing pages. We want to direct them to a part of our website where they could, like I said, get some more information, sign up for a newsletter, volunteer their information to set up a consultation, something like that. So again, the goal for that part of the project is to educate a very niche targeted group of viewers that will connect with the city, connect with the topic, so we can direct different companies or individuals to get more information. And really that's the project in a nutshell. I will be happy to send some more information, some example segments. But as far as the requirements, there are requirements. It is television, timing's critical. We would require, I would say, roughly 8 hours over the life of the project. We're hoping to film over the next 90 to 120 days. Most of the time would be for the filming day, but then also to approve scripts, tapes, and so forth. So nothing airs until you guys sign off on it. You have final approval on everything before it airs, and you also have a tremendous amount of creative input into the storyline. So there'll be synergy with the city, with everybody involved on your end, as well as my creative team with the script writing, the storyboarding. So in terms of the production value for the production, the distribution, this is about $250,000 project. As the mayor said, the featured guests are typically responsible for about 10% to cover the cost of some of the underwriting. In this case, there is a scheduling fee of $24,500. There are no other costs associated with the project. However, if we are going to come out to film on location, which from a visual perspective may be the best, if you already have a lot of B-roll, drone footage of everything we're going to be discussing in the segments, then we can have you come to our studio to do interviews. It's not going to be like a talking head piece. Anything we're discussing, we're going to have visuals, B-roll, and at the end of the project, you would have the licensing rights to the 3 finished pieces, which are all very high-end, professionally storyboarded, script-written pieces. But as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of B-roll, anything that doesn't make the final cut, anything that you want to snip out and interview and use separately, you will have the ability, the licensing rights to continue to use these on your website, on your social media, if you have an event or attend an event, or if you ever wanted to do an email campaign, there'll be a lot of digital content you'll be able to use there. So if we did all agree it would be best from a visual perspective to come out and film, it would be an additional $3,400 to cover the cost of the crew and the equipment for an on-site production and a day of filming in the city. Really, that's it, other than that we have to have access. Obviously, we need to be able to get on location and film, conduct interviews. And then the only other thing is the timing. We are looking to schedule the featured guests into the lineup. It's not really a matter of if we do the story, it's just a matter of who we end up doing it with. So we have time as far as the filming day, but there's a lot that goes into it before we actually coordinate the logistics around that. Like I said, we want to get more input from you into the storyline and start working with my script writers, the storyboarders, get final approvals on the scripts before we actually come out and film. So we're hoping, and I don't know what a project like this would entail as far as getting approvals on your end, but if we do have a green light and it is a viable option, I would present the story to my VP of Program Development. He'll probably want to get a little bit more input into who we might have on camera, where we film, what's the best timing for the city, just a little bit more input into the storyline. If he does agree that it is a good fit, we would present it to our executive producer as our part of our approval and selection process. We are going to be presenting several cities and towns, and we're going to select a few to be featured and highlighted for the public television documentary series. And then again, we do produce the additional segments as ancillary pieces to thank the featured guests for providing the content for the series.
Thank you, Jason. That was incredibly informative and well done. We all appreciate, I believe, the presentation. Unfortunately, one of our members, Jim Leahy, could not be with us this evening. He got caught up in work down in Boston. And he is and the only reason I say that is because he's a member of the Actors Guild, and certainly I'm sure he would hop in here, Mayor Murphy, and would want to participate in any production. Jason, I'll tell you one thing about Holyoke is it's an incredible place to come in to produce a documentary or to produce a film. Parts of the reincarnation of Peter Proud was actually filmed in Holyoke, and there's just an incredible atmosphere in Holyoke, not just what we have to offer, but I think from a number of different standpoints. But obviously your presentation is about the final product, and that's something that has sparked my interest, and let's see if anybody else is interested. Is there any discussion? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Graney.
Yeah, just quickly too, there have been some documentaries that have already been in place with her. One that bring to mind that the Moynihan young man did on Fight Town, which is a tremendous documentary on our town. So there's a wealth of material around for a project like this. So thank you, Jason. Thank you for your interest in Holyoke. Yes, thank you. If there is any footage that you have the licensing rights for, if it is very high definition quality footage, we're filming everything in Sony Red cameras, so we don't want to make it look like it's not all seamless, but we can use any footage. And obviously, if we do come out on the town and there's already stuff filmed, it gives us time to maybe focus on some other things, do some drone footage, go around the town, the districts, and conduct interviews and so forth.
Councilor Tomlin?
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for Mayor Murphy for bringing this forward. I think this is a great opportunity for our community. Jason, you sound like you're from New York.
I am from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, Brooklyn. I got a couple of friends I worked with that are from Brooklyn. I can tell by the
accent. I got 2 kids who live in Brooklyn.
I have one.
Yeah, I love the concept and the idea, and I know there's a funding, and I think that's why it's before our committee. But I think there'd be several businesses and several individuals. I think of a few on the council. I'd be willing to do some work as a member of the council. I was in the service, and I was working in the theater, and I met a guy named Joshua Logan, who was one of the biggest directors back in the 40s and 50s, and did several shows. But to get this out to like a TV for public television, I think would be a great benefit to the community of Holyoke as far as a marketing piece, and to show our country that what the benefits would be of this community, to have somebody not just start a business or to live here, but to enjoy the natural surroundings of our, we have the river, we have the mountains, we have reservoirs. There's a lot of areas in here that sometimes even some of our own members of our community haven't ever been to, that is really a gem. And I think it would be an ideal thing. I'd like to hear from some of my colleagues, on the council, but I think it would be a great opportunity and really beneficial marketing piece, for the city of Holyoke. And it has a fine history. I'm sure you could find and do a little research on what the community of Holyoke, how it started, and the people that were here, and and the industries that were here is it's just amazing. And some of us just take all that for granted, but I've been willing to hear more. I would love to know when these are on now. They're on public TV now, the different segments. Is there times we could see these?
Yeah, the public television segments are bridging the gap between peak and primetime programming. So shows like Nova, Antiques Roadshow, Masterpiece Theater, they're not ending exactly at 60 minutes or 30 minutes. So
Right.
these are not regularly scheduled. It's a non-commercial network, but they're bridging the gap between peak and primetime programming.
Okay.
So we do have, there's about 365 public television stations across the country that are reporting back to us. So we have monitoring reports on when these air, how many people are viewing them. But it's not like you could look it up in the TV guide. You're going to see the regularly scheduled programming on public television, and the public television stations are using these to really fill the gaps between programming where a commercial would be on regular television. So I can send you some of that information, but the other airings, as far as the major cable networks, those we get airing affidavits from, so you would know when they're going to air. And we had some airing tonight. I can send you some where you can watch live, and those are those 1-minute spots. So not only do you know when they're going to air, so you can watch them, tell everybody in the town to watch them or anybody else, but also once they're completed after they aired, you also get the report back from the stations where we do it. And again, I think we would do a nice base of business channels, family channels, and some of the travel and outdoor channels. We really want to have the piece connect with everybody who's going to be viewing it on those two segments, and it is a broad audience. The behind the scenes look, or corporate documentary, if you will, there we have an opportunity to get it in front of a very niche audience. So we'll put a lot of thought. That's going to be opt-in. So if there is a specific business or industry, if you're looking to fill commercial space, office space, we'll be able to get it in front of, like I said, executives, thought leaders, people within manufacturing or biotech, whoever you think would be a good fit. And from there, they'll be directed to your website where they can find out more information and hopefully, like I said, move the needle and bring business. And I had a great conversation. I think what's happening in the city is encouraging. We do want to provide educational, informative, but also inspiring stories. And I think it would really be a good fit based on my discussion. I do have some good notes, but like I said, we'll gather some more information, and certainly there'll be a tremendous amount of input if you're selected to participate. If it is something that you want to be considered for, once I do get approvals on my end, we'll send you a research questionnaire, and that'll be your initial input into the storyline. And then we'll really be able to start to shape the story on who we want to cover and within the city, and who we want to reach and educate with the three segments. Mm-hmm. So I really think it would be a good fit. I was excited, and I'm hoping that not only you guys agree, but also my executives also think it would be a good fit.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Mayor Murphy? Then Councilor Sullivan, sorry.
First of all, Jason, thank you very much. I appreciate both our conversations and our emails and doing a few things. Let me make a suggestion that, Jeffrey, if you would be kind enough to work with Jason, that you might get a few of the presentations that you can send out to the councilors, Jeffrey. I think that would help us.
Yeah, I can work on making that happen.
Okay. And, you know, I as we talked, and Jason and I talked about history. I talked about how Holyoke was an immigration city and still is an immigration city. And we've had a very diverse population for all of our history, and we still are in working in building communities. I've talked about the water, the river, the dam, the canal system, you know, our Mount Tom, our Children's Museum, Volleyball Hall of Fame, all the merry-go-round, the Holyoke Rose, all of those kind of things, and all of our diversity in terms of industry. And I know we are trying to work on involving tourism. I look at this potentially as a less than a $30,000 potential of, if we attract one or two businesses, we've made it. But if we attract one or two businesses, plus we get some people wanting to move in, and we get people wanting to come to visit as tourists, we help our restaurant industry, we help our hotel industry, and a variety of other parts of us. So, Jason, let me just ask, so if, and right now the council will not have a specific dollar amount in front of them, but I'm hoping, and obviously the committee will determine whether or not this goes forward, but if the committee moves this forward and the council said that they are very much in favor of this potential, then I'm assuming you would pursue it on your end, and eventually we would look to have a contract, which we would then have to fund the $29,000. Is that?
Yeah, it would be 24,500 plus 3,400 if we come out to film. So 27,900. There's no other cost associated with the project.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we have a green light on your end, from there I'll present it to my VP of Program Development. If he does agree, it is a good fit, and usually he takes my recommendations, and usually our executive producer takes our recommendations. You would get a 2-page invitation, which essentially is a production authorization.
Okay.
It's really simple. It bullet points everything we discussed, everything the project entails. It's not something really difficult to decipher. Okay. It's very straightforward. And once we have that back, we'll get final approvals on our end, and then we can start coordinating around the next step.
Okay. And just from my aspect, I would be more than willing to pay the extra $3,500 to have you on site, because I think that is a definite selling point that we can use. And there's a variety of things that we could put in there. And I know there'll be people that will want to support this based on some of the meetings I've had regarding tourism and economic development. So that's all I'll have to say. I want to thank you, Jason, for approaching me and following up and being willing to come to the Finance Committee. And I want to thank the Finance Committee for taking it up so quickly.
I appreciate that, Mayor. And I'm going to send some information with examples of the segments, cover everything we discussed on the call. And one thing I just want to point out, and as you mentioned, the benefits of the project, but you will also have the licensing rights to continue to use the content. So any other projects that you do in the future for tourism or economic development, you'll be able to continue to use all of the footage from the day of filming. And we'll get 6 to 7 hours worth of film. We're going to produce 3 short form segments. So there's going to be a lot of content that you'll also be able to continue to use moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you. Jason, you mentioned you're from Brooklyn. Are you near the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn?
No, actually, I would be at the exact opposite, South Central. Williamsburg's all the way at the top of Brooklyn.
Okay,
so more towards Coney Island, Brighton Beach, Sheepshead Bay. Gravesend Neck Road I'm from, Gravesend.
Okay, over the last several years, we've been doing quite a bit of demolition around Holyoke, and we've shipped over 1 million bricks from Holyoke, from the old mills dating back to the 1800s, to the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. So you've already got a little bit of our history in your backyard.
Yeah. And I can tell you Williamsburg has gotten a lot nicer since the last time I was there. So they're putting those bricks to good use.
Well, they can thank Holyoke for that look. What particularly interests me about this is your mention of the corporate niche that the program appeals to. And one of the things I'd like to really see us focus on and call your attention to is our focus on green energy and renewable resources. Holyoke's a real leader in the country, and this I think is a great tool for attracting new industry and new business to Holyoke. So I hope we can really focus on the future and what the future could hold through this for the city as well as the history.
100%. And certainly sustainability is a high sticking point and really resonates well with the public television viewing audience. So we will definitely want to cover everything you have as far as those initiatives.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would there be any further discussion? The chair would suggest, along the lines of what Mayor Murphy said, that we recommend to the full city council that we'd like to give a green light to go forward. As Terry pointed out, you know, it's going to be subject to an appropriation down the road, but we know the cost, we know the production, and certainly I think we all have a good understanding of what public television means to this country and what it means to their viewership in terms of selling ourselves to across the nation. So would the committee agree to make that recommendation?
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation that we move this forward, that we give the a green light for the Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid, public television series.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we adopt Mayor Murphy's order, giving a green light towards proceeding with entering into an agreement with the television Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid with the documentary of the city of Holyoke. On that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Jason, thank you so much. We're going to make that recommendation to the full city council Tuesday. We certainly will have an answer by Wednesday morning. Mayor Murphy and his folks will be working with you, and look forward to all of us working with you in the near future. Now, I just got to say one thing, which we didn't say before you gave the presentation, is I know you're a Rangers fan. I hope you're not rooting for those Brooklyn Nets against the Celtics.
No, I'm rooting for the Knicks. I'm rooting for the Knicks. I hope the Celtics beat Brooklyn.
As long as it's not the Nets.
Well, when I was in Brooklyn, the Nets were in New Jersey, so.
That's right. Send them back.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm very excited. I will email additional information. Once I hear back, I'll also be able to provide you with the 2-page authorization so you could take a look at that. And once we have that back in house, we'll go for the final approvals, and hopefully we'll have some good news and be able to work on the project. I would be very excited to tell the story, and I think it's going to really work out well.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
And tell Dennis we all said hi.
I will. Thank you.
We have one item left, and it's actually here, I think just for cleanup.
Motion to take item 6 off the table.
Motion made and second to take the final item off the table, which is item number 6.
6, yeah.
Sorry, I'm using my iPhone because I messed up. On the motion to take off the table, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Introduced by our president, Councilor McGee, that the Finance Committee invite Mike McManus and Robert Parent to discuss and address budgeting for sidewalk, trees, and equipment. I put this on the agenda and talking with our administrative assistant. I think what we've done over the last couple of months with the DPW includes most of this. And do we feel that at this point, I didn't have a chance to ask Councilor McGee, that this order has been complied with?
I agree with it's been complied with.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made, second, yours complied with. Is there any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody. Good meeting. Sorry for the confusion with the wrong agenda. My fault. But it's always good, Howie, to have the right agenda on the website, because then you know you're doing the right thing. So there's one more motion.
Joe.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second to adjourn. What's that?
I said, thanks, Joe. It's good to know that I'm updating my technological knowledge.
You got it down pat, Howie. And on the motion to adjourn, all those in favor? Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you again, and thank you for Thursday night. All those other committees took up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Good job.